Fifth trap, the lifestyle inflation ratchet. Here's a nasty mechanism most people never notice. Expenses are easy to add and nearly impossible to remove. Psychologists call this the endowment effect. Once you possess something, your brain values it roughly twice as much as before you owned it. You didn't think you needed Spotify. Now you need Spotify Premium. You didn't think you needed food delivery. Now cooking feels like punishment. You didn't think you needed next-day shipping. Now 3-day shipping feels like waiting. This is the ratchet. Each new convenience clicks into place, and once it's there, downgrading feels like loss. Your brain doesn't experience it as returning to neutral. It experiences it as deprivation. You didn't lose anything, but it feels like you did. So you keep the subscription, you keep the service, you keep the habit. The average American's lifestyle expenses increase 2.5% annually beyond inflation, not because their needs increase, because the ratchet only turns one direction. You add the $10 monthly subscription, then the $15 one, then the $20 one. 5 years later, you're spending $200 monthly on services that didn't exist in your life before, and cutting any of them feels like sacrifice. But here's what you're actually sacrificing: $347,000 over 30 years. That's what $200 monthly becomes when compounded. You traded it for convenience that you didn't miss until you had it, and won't miss again 6 weeks after you cut it. There's a study from the Journal of Consumer Research that tracked people who canceled subscription services they'd had for over a year. Researchers followed up at 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and 8 weeks. At 2 weeks, 68% reported missing the service. At 4 weeks, 34% missed it. At 8 weeks, only 9% still felt any sense of loss. Within 2 months, the necessity revealed itself as optional. The endowment effect faded. The ratchet clicked back. But most people never get to week 8. They cancel, feel the discomfort of week 2, and resubscribe. They think the discomfort is information. It's not. It's just withdrawal. Like any addiction, it passes. The wealthy understand something crucial. Every permanent expense is a permanent claim on your future labor. That $200 monthly subscription bundle isn't $200. It's $200 every month until you die or until you actively cancel. That's $2,400 annually.
If you're 45 years old and maintain this until retirement at 67, that's $52,800 in direct costs. Compounded, it's $147,000 you won't have. Think about what $147,000 represents in your life. That's 3 years of financial independence. That's the difference between retiring at 67 and retiring at 64. That's the difference between needing your children's help and not needing it. That's the difference between being a burden and being free. And you traded it for streaming services you barely watch, and delivery fees for food you could have picked up yourself, and priority boarding on flights where you sit in the same seat regardless. The escape. Do an annual purge. Every January, cancel everything. Every subscription, every service, every auto-renew, all of it. Then, mindfully add back only what you genuinely miss after 30 days. You'll add back maybe 40%. The other 60%? You'll forget you ever had it. This isn't deprivation. This is recalibration. Your baseline reset from artificially inflated back to actual. Most needs are just habits, and habits can be rewired in less time than you think. Now let's talk about the math nobody wants to face. The opportunity cost abyss. Every dollar you spend doesn't just disappear. It fails to multiply. The real cost isn't what you paid. It's what that money would have become. You bought a $40,000 car when a $25,000 car would have served the same function. That's not a $15,000 difference. At 10% annual return over 20 years, that's $101,000 you won't have. You took that money, which was alive and growing and multiplying, and you converted it into a depreciating asset that loses 60% of its value in 5 years. You bought the 2,400 square foot house when a 1,800 square foot house would have held your family comfortably. That extra $80,000 in mortgage? That's $241,000 in retirement money you just incinerated. Plus, the extra $180 monthly in utilities, property tax, and maintenance for space you don't use. That's another $312,000 over 30 years. This is financial homicide. You're killing millions of dollars of your future life to buy incremental comfort improvements in your present life that adaptation will render invisible within 6 months. There's a psychological phenomenon called hedonic adaptation. You buy something that increases your happiness. For about 6 weeks, it works.
You feel the upgrade in investment accounts, then a slightly nicer kitchen. They'll stop noticing in 3 months. Warren Buffett still lives in the house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Not because he can't afford better, because he can do math. If he'd instead bought a $150,000 house in 1958, that extra $118,500 would have become approximately $74 million by 2024 at his average return rate. He chose multiplication over square footage. You don't need to be that extreme, but you need to see the trades. Every upgrade is a compound interest massacre. Every luxury purchase is a future you won't have. Not because spending is immoral, because mathematics is merciless. Calculate your opportunity cost. Take every major purchase from the last 10 years. The car upgrade, the bigger house, the luxury vacation, the unnecessary renovations. Add them up. Now, compound them forward at 10% annually until your retirement age. That number you're looking at? That's your alternate reality. That's the retirement account you could have. That's the freedom you traded for temporary comfort that you've already adapted to and no longer consciously enjoy. The 6th trap, the emotional spending loop. You're not actually buying the $45 sushi dinner. You're buying temporary relief from anxiety. You're not actually buying the $120 shoes. You're buying a dopamine hit that distracts you from job dissatisfaction. The transaction isn't economic, it's emotional. And emotional spending is a leak that never stops. Psychologists have identified retail therapy as a real but counterproductive coping mechanism. When you're stressed, anxious, bored, or sad, your brain seeks dopamine. Shopping provides it. The anticipation of acquisition triggers dopamine release. The actual purchase triggers another hit. For about 40 minutes, you feel better. Then the dopamine fades. The emotion returns. So, you shop again. This is the emotional spending loop. Bad feeling to purchase, to temporary relief, to bad feeling returns to purchase. It's identical in structure to substance addiction. Same neurotransmitter, same cycle. Same escalating tolerance requiring larger purchases to achieve the same relief. The average American makes 3.2 emotional regulation purchases per week. Small things, mostly. The $8 impulse item at checkout, the $15 stress relief smoothie, the $25 treat yourself candle. These aren't planned. They're emotional band-aids, and they cost $2,900 annually. That's $504,000 over 30 years compounded.
$500,000 spent on temporary emotional regulation. Think about that. You're incinerating retirement freedom to feel slightly less anxious for 40-minute intervals. The wealthy solve this differently. They don't have better willpower. They have better emotional infrastructure. They invest in therapy, meditation practices, exercise routines, and social connections that provide actual, sustainable dopamine. They build baseline contentment so they don't need retail therapy. This sounds soft. It's not. It's financial pragmatism. A $150 monthly therapy copay is $1,800 annually. That's $313,000 over 30 years compounded. But if it eliminates $2,900 in emotional spending, you net $191,000 over the same period. Plus, you're mentally healthier. Plus, you make better decisions. Plus, you don't need purchases to regulate your mood. The math always wins. You're either spending money on solutions or spending money on symptoms. Symptoms cost more and solve nothing. Track your emotional purchases for 1 month. Don't judge them, just track. Note what you were feeling before each unplanned purchase. You'll see patterns. Maybe you buy food when stressed. Maybe you buy clothes when bored. Maybe you buy gadgets when anxious. Those patterns? They're costing you $400,000 to $600,000 of future freedom. Cut the pattern, keep the money. Invest in actual emotional infrastructure. Your future self will worship you for it. Let me make the invisible visible with actual life cycle numbers. Take a typical middle-income American, age 35, makes $65,000 annually, currently has $42,000 in retirement accounts, saves 6% of income with 3% employer match. That's $5,850 annually going into retirement. At this rate, by age 67 with 8% average returns, this person will have $947,000. Sounds okay, right? That's $37,880 annually at 4% withdrawal rate. Combined with Social Security average benefit of $21,000, that's $58,880 yearly in retirement. But this person also spends $2,100 annually on coffee and convenience beverages, $3,200 annually on lunch at work, $2,400 annually on subscription services, $4,800 annually on delivery fees and convenience charges, $1,800 annually on impulse purchases under $20 to $2,900 annually on emotional regulation purchases. Total, $17,200 in micro expenses. These feel small in the moment, but compounded over 32 years until retirement, these exact expenses would grow to $2,987,000. Read that again. The small stuff, the stuff that feels harmless, equals 3 times what they'll actually have in retirement. They're choosing $947,000 over $3,934,000. That's the opportunity cost. That's what invisibility costs. With that full amount, their retirement income would be $157,360 annually instead of $58,880. That's not just a better retirement. That's a different life. That's financial sovereignty. That's never worrying about money again. But because these expenses are invisible, distributed, and individually tiny, most people never see this calculation. They're unknowingly choosing poverty in old age to fund micro-comforts in the present that they'll forget within hours. Here's the part that should terrify you. Time is the most powerful force in compound interest, and it only works in one direction. If you're 35, you have 32 years until typical retirement. If you're 45, you have 22 years. If you're 55, you have 12 years. Same $17,200 annual micro-spending. Different time horizons. 32 years, $2,987,000 lost. 22 years, $1,417,000 lost. 12 years, $467,000 lost. Every year you wait, the magnitude of loss decreases, but the certainty of consequences increases. The 45-year-old who realizes this still has time to build $1.4 million, but they have to stop the bleeding today. Not next month, not after this vacation. Today. The most expensive words in personal finance. I'll start next year. That year of delay at age 40? It costs $97,000 in final retirement value. Every single year of delay costs roughly 7 to 8% of total potential. You can't get it back. Time is the one resource you can't earn more of. Now let's examine what the wealthy do differently. Not what they say, what they actually do. I've analyzed spending patterns of millionaires who started with median incomes. The difference isn't income, it's spending architecture. They automate investment first. Money goes to investment accounts before they see it, before they can spend it, before their brain categorizes it as available. The average wealthy person invests 20 to 25% of gross income, not through heroic willpower, through automatic transfer on payday. What's not there can't be spent. They track everything, not obsessively, systematically. They review spending monthly. They see patterns you miss. They notice the $180 they spent on convenience fees. They notice the $240 on unused subscriptions. They notice the $95 on impulse food purchases. Then they build systems to eliminate these leaks. They delay gratification through time arbitrage. They want the $3,000 vacation, so they calculate, if I invest this $3,000 now and take the vacation in 5 years, that $3,000 becomes $4,832 at 10% return. I can take a better vacation and still have money left. They shift consumption forward, letting compound interest pay for it. They buy assets, not liabilities. The car they buy generates no income. The investment property they buy generates $1,200 monthly. Same purchase price. One costs money forever. One pays money forever. They choose differently, not because they're smarter, but because they see the full life cycle cost. They experience present-day fulfillment through free or low-cost dopamine, exercise, nature, reading, skill building, relationships. They've hacked their neurochemistry. They don't need to buy happiness because they've built happiness infrastructure. This sounds philosophical. It's just brain chemistry management. You can implement all of this, starting now. Not next month, now. First, calculate your actual number. How much do you need in retirement to maintain independence? Multiply your desired annual spending by 25. That's your target using the 4% rule. Most people need $1 million to $2 million. How much do you have? How old are you? How many years until retirement? How much must you save monthly to reach your target? Online calculators do this in 30 seconds. Second, track every expense for 30 days. Every transaction, every subscription, every fee. Aggregate by category. Calculate annual totals. Then, calculate 30-year compound values at 10% return for each category. You'll feel sick. Good. That's your body recognizing truth. Third, eliminate the invisible hemorrhages. Cancel unused subscriptions. Delete saved payment methods. Remove one-click purchasing. Reintroduce friction. Pack lunch 3 days per week. Make coffee at home. Walk instead of Uber for trips under 1 mile. These aren't sacrifices. They're compound interest turbos. Fourth, automate investment first.
Increase your retirement contribution by 1% every quarter until you hit 20% of gross income. You won't notice 1% quarterly increases, but in 2 years, you'll be saving 20% instead of 6%. That's the difference between retirement and poverty with the same income. Fifth, build emotional infrastructure. The $150 monthly therapy copay, the $50 monthly gym membership, the $30 monthly meditation app. These aren't expenses. They're dopamine infrastructure that eliminates $300 monthly in emotional spending. They're profitable. Calculate the return. Spend $230 to save $300. That's 30% monthly ROI before compound interest. Sixth, make future you visceral. Age your photo. Put it on your phone's lock screen. Write the letter from your 70-year-old self. Read it before any purchase over $50. Ask, would future me thank me for this? If no, don't buy it. The Stanford marshmallow experiment is famous. Kids who could delay gratification, wait 15 minutes for 2 marshmallows instead of eating one now, had better life outcomes decades later. Higher income, better health,
Stronger relationships. Everyone cites this study. Few understand what it actually means. It's not about willpower. It's about the ability to make future self real. The kids who waited weren't more disciplined. They had stronger mental simulation of future reward. They could feel the 2 marshmallows. The kids who ate immediately couldn't simulate future state. Only present was real. Your micro-purchases are the marshmallow test in slow motion. Every time you buy the convenience, the comfort, the unnecessary upgrade, you're eating the 1 marshmallow. The 2 marshmallows, the compound future, the financial freedom, the sovereign old age, they're invisible to you. Unreal, abstract, until they're not. Until you're the old person, and past you is gone, and the marshmallows are eaten, and you have nothing. But here's the beautiful truth nobody tells you. Once you see compound interest, really see it, viscerally, mathematically, spending loses its appeal. Not through deprivation, through clarity. You stop wanting the $40 restaurant meal when you can see it's actually $696 in retirement money. Not because you're cheap, because $696 is more valuable to you than pasta. This is financial enlightenment, not philosophical, mathematical. When you understand what money becomes over time, present consumption becomes less interesting than future multiplication. The dopamine shifts from spending to saving, from consuming to accumulating. You get the same neurochemical reward from watching your investment account grow that you used to get from buying things. This isn't theory. This is how every wealthy person I know thinks. They feel pleasure watching compound interest work. They don't feel deprived skipping the luxury. They feel smart. They feel powerful. They're choosing the bigger marshmallow, and that choice itself provides the dopamine hit. You can rewire this in yourself, but first, you have to see what you're trading. You have to calculate your opportunity costs. You have to make the invisible visible. You have to turn abstract future dollars into concrete present images. Do the math today, not tomorrow. Your 55-year-old self is already screaming backward through time. Your 65-year-old self is begging. Your 75-year-old self has given up hope. But you're here now. You're reading this now, which means you still have time. Not much, never as much as you think, but enough. The door is open. The physics is on your side. Exponential growth wants to work for you. Compound interest is patient. It'll wait. It'll multiply. It'll transform your small sacrifices into massive freedom. But it needs time, and fuel, and you to stop setting the fuel on fire. Every dollar you don't spend is a soldier in the army of your future freedom. Every micro expense you eliminate is a compound interest bomb that detonates in your favor 30 years from now. Every subscription you cancel is $50,000 you just gave yourself. This is time travel. This is how you send resources to future you. This is how you rescue yourself from the poverty that's currently being locked in by 1,000 invisible decisions per month. The wealthy aren't smarter. They're not more disciplined. They just see what you don't see yet. They see the compound curve. They see the opportunity cost. They see future self as real as present self. You can see it too. You're seeing it right now. The question is, will you act on what you see? Or will you close this, feel momentarily inspired, and return to the same invisible hemorrhaging by tomorrow morning? Your 70-year-old self already knows which choice you'll make. They're living the consequence right now. The only question is, which consequence? Freedom or dependence? Sovereignty or burden? 2 marshmallows or 1? The math doesn't care about your feelings. The compound curve doesn't negotiate. Time moves at 1 second per second, whether you use it or waste it. But you still have choice. You still have time. You still have the power to choose differently. The gravitational field is reversible. Stop throwing money downward. Start sending it upward. Let compound interest accelerate it into escape velocity. Your future self is waiting, and they're either thanking you or cursing you. You're deciding which. Right now, with every choice. Choose better. Calculate harder. See clearer. The invisible made visible loses its power. Financial cannibalism stops the moment you see you're the one holding the knife. Put it down. The feast is over. Your future self needs that meat more than your present self needs the taste.
And you traded it for hot bean water.
But wait, you're thinking, I need my coffee. I need to function. Sure, make it at home for 40 cents per cup. The difference between $5.75 and 40 cents is $5.35 daily. That's still $293,000 over 30 years. You still get the caffeine, you still get the ritual. You just stop feeding your money into a furnace. This is what I call the invisible amputation. You're cutting off pieces of your future body, but because the pain arrives decades later, your nervous system registers nothing. No immediate consequence means no behavioral change. It's financial nerve damage. The first trap, the friction-free guillotine. Your grandmother paid with cash. She opened her wallet, counted bills, felt the physical loss. Each transaction had texture, weight, consequence. Her brain registered, I am now poorer. The prefrontal cortex, your financial decision-making center, activated with every purchase. You tap a card, or worse, your phone. Or worse still, it's auto-debited. The money vanishes from your account like ghosts through walls. No friction, no pain, no neural activation. Research from MIT's Sloan School of Management found that people spend up to 100% more when using cards versus cash for the exact same items. Not because they're less intelligent, because their brains literally don't process the transaction as real loss. The payment technology industry knows this. They've spent billions engineering frictionlessness. Not for your convenience, for their profit.
Every time they remove one more step between your impulse and your money, your spending increases. Apple Pay, one-click ordering, subscription, auto-renewals. These aren't features. They're weapons designed to bypass your financial immune system. Look at your bank statement from last month. Really, look. How many charges do you barely remember? Those ghost transactions, the $9.99 streaming service you forgot you have, the $4.50 convenience fee you didn't notice, the $12 delivery charge that seemed small in the moment. They're not exceptions. They're the majority. Death by 1,000 invisible cuts. The average American has 12 forgotten active subscriptions. 12. That's $40 to $80 monthly vanishing into services you don't use. Multiply by 30 years, that's between $52,000 and $104,000 you'll never see again, for products you forgot existed. The exit strategy. Reintroduce friction. Delete saved payment methods. Unsubscribe from one click.
Force yourself to manually enter card details for non-essential purchases. That 15-second delay, it's not inconvenience. It's a circuit breaker for your impulse system. It gives your prefrontal cortex time to boot up and ask, do I actually want this? Or does my dopamine system want this? Install a 24-hour rule. Screenshot any non-essential item you want. If you still want it tomorrow, buy it. You'll buy 60% less. That's not from willpower. That's from letting your brain's rational system catch up to your emotional system. The second trap, the latte factor fallacy. You've heard the term latte factor before. Personal finance gurus love it. Skip the latte, become a millionaire. It sounds simple. It sounds achievable. It's also dangerously incomplete. Because it's not actually about the latte. The latte is just the visible symptom of an invisible disease. The real problem? You're optimizing for the wrong variable. You're focused on the expense. You should be focused on the decision-making pattern that generated that expense. Think about why you bought that coffee. Really, why? Not the surface reason, I was tired. The systemic reason. You were tired because you stayed up until 1 a.m. scrolling social media. Why? Because your dopamine regulation is hijacked. Why? Because every app on your phone is engineered by neuroscientists to create behavioral addiction. The coffee purchase isn't the problem. It's mile marker 18 of a 20-mile problem. This is the symptom-chasing loop. You see the latte. You cut the latte. You feel virtuous. 2 weeks later, you're buying $8 smoothies instead because your brain is still seeking the dopamine hit of a small purchase that feels like self-care. You didn't solve anything. You just moved the leak to a different pipe. The wealthy don't eliminate lattes. They eliminate the need for lattes. They structure their lives to not need a $6 injection of caffeine and dopamine each morning. They sleep better because they control their evening technology use. They have more baseline energy because they've invested in their health infrastructure. They don't need retail therapy because they've built actual satisfaction into their daily lives. See the difference? It's not about deprivation. It's about causal chains. Poor people cut expenses. Rich people cut the systems that generate unnecessary expenses. Here's what this looks like in practice. Your $5.75 latte is purchased because you're exhausted. You're exhausted because you sleep poorly. You sleep poorly because your bedroom is too hot, and your mattress is 8 years old, and your mind races at night. Instead of buying 365 lattes at $2,098 annually, you invest $1,500 once into blackout curtains, a quality mattress pad, and a white noise machine. Your sleep quality improves 40%. Your morning energy stabilizes. You naturally drink less coffee because you need less caffeine. You just saved $600 this year and every year after, forever. Plus, you're healthier. Plus, you think clearer. Plus, you make better decisions all day because sleep-deprived brains lose 20 to 30% of executive function. That's not a trade-off. That's leverage. You spent money to eliminate the need to spend more money. This is how the wealthy think. They're not cheaper. They're playing a different game entirely. The math. That same $1,500 one-time investment, if not spent, would grow to $26,000 in 30 years. But the avoided coffee purchases, $2,098 annually, grow to $364,000 in the same period. The net result of this single systemic change? $338,000 from sleeping better. The third trap, the present bias vortex. Your brain has two decision-making systems. System 1 is fast, emotional, automatic. It experiences the now. System 2 is slow, rational, effortful. It plans for later. These systems are in constant war, and System 1 wins 90% of battles because it moves at the speed of neurotransmitters, while System 2 moves at the speed of conscious thought. Behavioral economists call this temporal discounting or present bias. In laboratory settings, people consistently value $100 today over $200 in 2 years. Not because they're stupid, because the $100 today activates the nucleus accumbens, your brain's reward center, with the same intensity as cocaine. The $200 in 2 years activates nothing. It's an abstraction, a story, not real to your limbic system. This is why future you always loses. Present you has a neurochemical army. Future you has a spreadsheet. Professor Hal Hershfield at UCLA ran a fascinating experiment. He used virtual reality technology to show young adults aged versions of themselves. Participants put on VR headsets and saw their own faces digitally aged by 40 years. They talked to this older self, looked into its eyes. Then they were asked to allocate money between present spending and retirement savings. The control group, who didn't see their aged selves, allocated about 73% to present spending, 27% to retirement. The VR group? They flipped to 42% present, 58% retirement. Same people, same amounts, different allocation. Why? Because they made future self real. They gave System 1 a face to care about. They turned abstraction into emotion. Your micro-purchases exist in this vortex. The $12 DoorDash delivery fee feels tiny right now because present you is hungry and tired. The $66,000 that fee becomes over 30 years is invisible because future you is a ghost, an abstraction, a theoretical construct your limbic system doesn't recognize as real. But here's the cruel truth. Future you becomes present you at exactly the rate of 1 second per second. That ghost becomes solid. And when it does, when you're 67 years old and looking at a retirement account that's $400,000 smaller than it should be, past you will be the ghost. The person who could have made different choices but didn't because they couldn't see you standing here, real and aging and limited. The way out? Make future you visceral. Not conceptual, visceral. Create a photo-aged image of yourself and set it as your phone's lock screen. Write a letter from your 70-year-old self to your current self. Describe your daily reality in detail. Do you take medication you can't afford? Do you still work because you can't retire? Are you dependent on children you didn't want to burden? Make it hurt. Make it real. Then reverse engineer. Your 70-year-old self needs $1.2 million to maintain basic independence at 4% withdrawal rate. That's $48,000 annually. You currently have $35,000 saved. You're 42. That means you need to save $2,100 monthly for 28 years at 8% returns to hit the target. You're currently saving $400 monthly. You're short $1,700 per month. That's $56 daily. Look at your spending. Where's the $56? It's there. It's always there. It's in the micro decisions you make 50 times per day without thinking. Fourth trap, the aggregation invisibility. Single raindrops are invisible. You don't see them, don't feel them. But a million raindrops? That's a flood that destroys cities. Your micro expenses work the same way. Each one is too small for your brain to classify as threat, but they aggregate into financial catastrophe. Psychologists call this denominator neglect. Your brain struggles to process small numbers in large quantities. It's why people fear shark attacks, 11 deaths annually, but not vending machines, 13 deaths annually. The single dramatic event feels dangerous. The distributed mundane events don't. Your $3.50 bottled water at the airport doesn't register as financial threat. But you fly 8 times per year. That's $28. 30 years. That's $4,861 if invested. Still small enough to dismiss, right? Now add the $7 sandwich you bought at the same airport because you didn't pack food. That's $56 per trip. 8 trips. $448 annually. 30 years at 10% return, $77,865. Now add the $15 checked bag fee you paid because you didn't plan ahead, and the $25 Uber to the airport because you didn't arrange a ride, and the $40 dinner at the terminal restaurant because you arrived too early. Single trip total, $90. Annual total, $720. 30-year compound value, $125,144. One category, air travel. You just found $125,000, but you never saw it because your brain doesn't aggregate micro decisions into macro consequences. Each individual expense was only $15 or just $25. None crossed the psychological threshold that triggers your financial alarm system. The wealthy are wealthy partly because they have accountants who aggregate for them. Every expense gets categorized. Every category gets totaled. Every total gets analyzed. They don't have better self-control. They have better information systems. They see the flood while you're still looking at individual raindrops. Build your own aggregation system. It takes 15 minutes. Open a spreadsheet. List every recurring expense. List every category of routine purchases: coffee, lunch, subscriptions, convenience fees, delivery charges, impulse items. Track for 1 month. Really track every transaction. Then multiply by 12. You'll be horrified. Good. Horror is appropriate. You've been hemorrhaging money in quantities your brain couldn't process. Now the powerful part. Calculate the 30-year compound value of each category. Use any compound interest calculator online. Enter your annual spending. Enter 10% return. Enter 30 years. Watch the number appear. Your $200 monthly miscellaneous spending? That's $452,000 in retirement money. Your $80 monthly delivery fees? That's $181,000. Your $50 monthly small treats? That's $113,000. These aren't hypotheticals. These are direct trades. You're choosing between present comfort and future freedom. Neither choice is wrong, but you need to see what you're actually choosing. Right now, you're choosing blind. You're trading something massive for something tiny without realizing the exchange rate.